I will introduce myself. I'm Tina Lerno. I'm a librarian on LAPL's digital content team. And in a previous career, and seems like a previous lifetime ago, I worked in television animation. All right, so I'm going to introduce Damian and John. Damian Duffy is a cartoonist, scholar, writer, curator, lecturer, teacher, and a Glyph Comics, Eisner Comics, and Bram Stoker Award-winning #1 New York Times best-selling graphic novelist. He holds an MS and a PhD in Library and Information Sciences from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he teaches courses on computers and culture and social media and global change. And today we also have with us John Jennings, who is a professor of media and cultural studies at the University of California at Riverside. Jennings is co-editor of the Eisner Award-winning collection, The Blacker the Ink, Constructions of the Black Identity in Comics and Sequential Art. Jennings is also a 2016 Nasir Jones Hip Hop Studies Fellow with the Hutchins Center at Harvard University. Jennings' current projects include the horror anthology book Box of Bones, the coffee table book Black Comix Returns with Damian Duffy, and the Eisner-winning Bram Stoker Award-winning New York Times best-selling graphic novel adaptation of Octavia Butler's classic dark fantasy novel, Kindred. Damian Duffy and John Jennings recently published their graphic novel adaptation of Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, available in print at the library and also digitally on our Hoopla platform. And their adaptation has been nominated for a Hugo Award and Eisner Award, and we are thrilled to have them with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So
oh, go ahead.
no, it's we are gonna get started. If anyone has any questions, you can drop them in the chat. Can everyone see the chat?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to put them there and we'll try to circle back to them if we have time. Also, at the end of this program, if you can take a moment to do our online survey, there's a chance to win a $50 gift card from the library store. It's a quick, easy survey, and the library store has some great stuff. And by logging on today, you have been entered into a giveaway of a copy of Parable of the Sower. We will reach out to the winner later. Thank you so much. John, Damian, can you tell us about how you made this?
Yeah.
Sure.
No problem. So I'll begin. I have some images of some progress work and we can kind of start and go from there. Let me hit the old share screen. It's like I'm teaching a class. This is weird. Okay. It's summer break. Let's see. All right. PDF. Everybody see that? We good? Fantastic. Okay. So yeah, actually I can go back in time a little bit. So John and I started our work with Octavia Butler by adapting Kindred, which did well, as our intros say. And then we were actually so with Kindred, we came to the project came to us. It was always going to be Kindred. But because that adaptation did well, we had the opportunity to choose our next adaptation of Octavia Butler's work. And because it was, when they asked us, it was 2017, and the former president was about to take office, and also so many of the themes and settings and ideas in Parable of the Sower seem so prescient and of this moment.
Yes.
We decided that Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents should be our next project. And yeah, so here's our chapter breaks. This was kind of going along with something we did with Kindred, where for that one, each chapter break would just be kind of a single image setting for one of the scenes in the chapter, and also function as kind of a break in the story. Is that how you describe it, John?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because there was something, the naming of the chapters in Kindred was so iconic and very place oriented. And, you know, when Damian and I were talking about what we would do for this particular book, we were thinking about the fact that, you know, Parable of Sower is a journey, you know, and so there's a huge need for Lauren to study the spaces that she's in. And, you know, we started with what she was aspiring to. So we started with like a star map, and then these different like mapping systems we thought were really appropriate for like chapter openings. So.
And so much of what Lauren does through Parable of the Sower, the main character, is like her mapping out her own system for understanding the world and this religion, Earthseed. So this was talking about sort of the prescience of the novel for the current moment, but also it was very much a novel of its time when Butler was working on the late 80s. In Parable of the Talents, the sequel that we're working on adapting right now, a fascist president comes to power under the slogan "Make America Great Again." So there were a lot of articles and stuff about, you know, Octavia Butler saw the future, but she was actually commenting on Reagan in 1980 used that slogan because Trump just rips off everything. But also a lot of the stuff she talked about income inequality, about homelessness, about climate catastrophe. Really what Butler did was paid attention to what was happening in her time and just projected it forward 30 years, because she talks about Parable of the Sower being a if this goes on type of science fiction story, kind of meant to be a warning. And the fire tornado there in the lower right corner, that hadn't really happened in real life. I think it happened once in Australia when Butler was writing, but by the time we got to it, I was able to find, you know, photo reference next to the highway that the book has a fire tornado written on. So again, talking about the kind of prescience of the novel. These are quotes. I don't know if we need these quotes. How you doing over there, John?
I'm doing good.
I feel like I'm talking a lot. Okay. Well, so we're going to do this. This presentation kind of breaks the process of making the graphic novel down sort of in the order that we do it. So it starts with me, like all good things. Sorry. Anyway, so it starts with me reading the novel many times. Parable of Sower, I read, I think, somewhere between 12 and 14. But then like you go over particular passages, and here's some images of me working on that. So I do a lot of kind of doodling and scribbling and thumbnails of how scenes will play out, and kind of breaking them down. So you can see a little bit closer here too, like kind of just little stick figures and people. So figuring out what I will want to eventually communicate in a script, and that gets sent to John. You can see me down here. This was like the start of the script. And I was listening to Spotify playlist that our friend Yatasha Womack co-curated with the musician actress Janelle Monáe, because I thought that made me look cool. I actually was listening to it, but I was like, social media is for making me look cool. Okay. And then this, the image on the left, John actually did for the paperback of Kindred, to sort of announce that this would be our next project with Octavia Butler's work. Right. So that's just like kind of a close-up of the very start of the script. And then, the other thing that really was important in my process of writing the script was superheroes, obviously, not really, but Dr. Manhattan and Superman, sort of. Actually, the creator of Dr. Manhattan, of Watchmen, of a lot of graphic novels, Alan Moore, and something he had kind of a practice he'd based on this 50s and I think 60s Superman editor, Mort Weisinger, who had a reputation for just being like
really mean, right?
Like really mean.
Very serious. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And it was, he said that Weisinger's rule for his Superman comics was if you have 6 panels on the page, no panel can have more than 35 words. So Alan Moore mathed that out to 210 words per page. So after I like write out a scene and like bring in as much sort of dialogue and narration as I could, and then I would highlight them and see what the word count was and like simplify and edit and excerpt things based on this insane math problem about how many words in a comic book page. But it was really helpful. It helped me get through the difficult process.
Did it end up being that per page? I mean, I don't know if I ever asked you that, but
yes.
Okay.
No, I was pretty strict about it. Occasionally I would cheat like one word over on a panel if and then there, there's like pages where it's like a splash page and I'm like, put all the text on there. But it kind of worked. It helped. It worked for the sequel too.
Well, that's good. I mean, did it help you with well, I guess it would help a lot with the lettering because Damian's also our letterer for these projects as well. So I could see that being extremely useful.
Yeah, that was really part of the reason I started doing it for this one, because I didn't do it for Kindred. And with Kindred, sometimes it was a little bit of a struggle, even after gone through an editing process to get all the words to fit. Oh yeah, so this is just, you can see, these are just some like quickie Photoshop visualizations I put together in the script because it was a very complicated scene and thought that would help John. And as you can see, he nailed it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It was very helpful that you did that.
Doing my best. I know it's no fun to draw. How many people on bikes? Too many people. That's how
many people on bikes. Anyway, drawing bikes is hard. Never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they're complicated and weird. It's hard. Oh yeah. So and then another thing that was really important to me in like writing the script and thinking about the adaptation process was making sure to include all of the Earthseed Books of the Living verses that start off each chapter in the novel. And also thinking about ways to sort of incorporate the fact that Lauren is writing a journal, like all the narration in the novel is a journal, and sort of bringing that in to the visual aspect. So there's a few dream sequences throughout the book, and the book starts with a dream sequence. So I had this idea of like using kind of notebook, line notebook texture in the background to sort of show that it was a dream, but then also in the word, the caption boxes to show that her narration was being written.
Yeah.
And here's what a script looks like. Not every script, but this one that I wrote. Cool thing about comics, not a lot of script rules or format rules, but so yeah, as you can see, it's each panel description. You get like the narration or dialogue. Occasionally, if I have like bizarre, intricate ideas for page layouts, I'll do kind of rough sketches like these for John. There's that. And then you can see how it transferred into this awesome 2-page spread where we introduce Lauren Elamina's hyper empathy.
Yeah. I was thinking about too when I was looking at the script, and referencing, well, not necessarily Alan Moore, but Neil Gaiman. That whole statement about him, about the comic book writer is writing. The script is like a love letter to the artist.
Right.
Yeah, I always feel like that because Damian and I have been working together for like over 15 years or so, 16 years, and Damian will actually put like references of things that we encountered together, like traveling and stuff like that, or actually put like detailed references like the ones he's shown directly into the script, and essentially he's not writing the script for our editor or for the audience, he's writing it for me, so it is like basically a map, so to speak, of like how I'm supposed to like lay out the page and interpret characters and actually talk about the just to kind of like what we call the pantomime. Like if he says like someone's crying, I say, okay, well, how do I draw someone crying? Or like, if there's the emotive acting that happens on the page, is something that is being dictated by Damian to me as far as like how he's envisioning the scene. So,
but then also, I mean, like if you're out there and you're thinking about writing comics, don't do this. Artists will hate you. It's a lot of detail. I only feel comfortable doing it because John and I have been working together for so long, and we have a lot of experience talking about comics, thinking about visual storytelling, and also
it gets pretty intense, because like the schematic we're going to have to do for the second, installment.
You know what's funny is you say that, and I'm like, which schematic? Because there's a few. I'm bad. Sorry.
There's a few schematics. I haven't gotten to all of them. Okay, you know what? Let's just finish this.
Talk about this again. Okay. And anyway, so yeah, while I'm working on the script, and then the script goes to our editor, Charlotte Greenbaum, and she and I went back and forth, and also we had kind of a editorial consultant or sensitivity reader in the author Tananarive Due, who teaches and is really familiar with Parable of the Sower. Was there to help us make sure we were getting things correct and staying true to the spirit of the original story. We're going back and forth. And then John is working on character designs.
Exactly, which is actually what I'm doing right now as I'm going through the script, which is really good, by the way. The talent script is, I'm really enjoying it, even though it's like, extremely harrowing. But anyway, so as Damian's saying, like, so I'm just trying to get used to what the character is looking like. In the original, in Parable of the Sower, like I got the idea to kind of give Lauren this kind of like shade side, kind of look based off a friend of ours' haircut, one of our older haircuts actually, Imazli Dukan, who's a Afrofuturist filmmaker. And I just thought it was not only like a really great homage to her, but also a really cool look for her. And you can see like how she progresses throughout the stories. The other thing too is that, Lauren, she, cuts her hair, she changes up her look a little bit. And, one of the things about doing comics, you want to make sure that people recognize the character. And so we got the idea of giving her a birthmark. And so basically we got the idea that the mark on her cheek is kind of like a seed, like she's the sower, and you pointing at it.
I was trying to. The virtual background ate my finger.
That's hilarious. Anyway, yeah, so like the mole on her cheek, we thought was a really good signifier for like, so we could show a lot easier like her going from like a teenage girl to like an older woman, because by the time we get to the second book, she's in her 80s, I think.
Like the final spoilers and like one of the later scenes.
Sorry, yeah, they've already read probably a million times, like we have. But anyway, so yeah, so this is I work digitally now. After Kindred almost murdered me, I decided to just transfer all of my drawing over to like the iPad. I work in a program called Procreate with the Apple Pencil. The setup is actually about $800, but if you want to get the setup, but the Procreate on costs like $11. So it's a very powerful program, and you can do like a lot of things that are very painterly. And also I handle all the coloring too. We actually work with a flatting team to help with the colors, and these are just kind of like experimental ways of looking at the character. And I just did this while they were going through the editing process. So. Oh,
Dad. One thing I asked John to do, or like we talked about when we were talking about the visuals for Parable of the Sower and how we might differentiate them from like rendering style in Kindred, was more of this kind of texture or like rougher textures that sort of, I don't know, they felt more like dystopian or futuristic than.
Yeah, I might push that more even in the new, in the next book too. I was thinking about that. We'll talk about it.
We should talk about that. Should we just talk? We can just ignore all these other people. We'll just talk
about this the next.
All right,
book.
let me bust out. Okay, no, that's a bad idea. Never mind. Oh, anyway, there's Reverend. Here's some coloring, done with a team of color assistants.
Yes.
Who do the flatting.
So it's one of Mrs. Sims was one of my favorite drawings. So I really like the way she turned out.
I love how you did her in the astronaut helmet. That came out awesome. That was great.
Thanks.
That's true. Yes, and there's the astronaut that we never actually see, but now you know what she looks like if she showed up in the. We don't see her, do we? I don't think we do.
I don't think. Yeah, no.
They didn't talk about her early on in the book, but yeah, some more. Another thing that John and I seem to keep doing with our graphic novels is everyone at like. Every new project we do is like longer and harder and has more cast members.
More characters, exactly.
So we're smart is the story there. And then a rendering of one of the paints, the terrifying people addicted to the pyro drug and start fires, and Lauren when she's on her journey.
Yeah, just trying to get the feel for what the characters look like. He's always suspicious. I love this kid. It's like I always have him drawn, looking like what's going on. You know,
That's
this is
because
Macaulay. You know,
he's older, so he knows not to trust anything.
right?
Ah, yes, and these are characters who show up really late in the book. And I remember working on the script, and I was like, "Why does she introduce like 12 characters in the last
In
like
the last
20
like third of the book.
Come on, it's hard." Okay, and yeah, some of the characters they meet on the road during the second part. Oh yeah, and this is kind of a process of you can see how it goes from the script page to the thumbnails. You want to talk about the thumbnails, John?
Yeah, sure. So basically, while we're working on this, I'm drawing out the pages once the script has been approved. A lot of times, Abrams will do what's called an advanced reader's copy. So basically, what that is it's like a breakdown of the entire book, lettered to be sent out to or given to people once it's been edited. So Damian's lettering over my sketches or what have you. And yeah, basically, they give out this piece to kind of get like an early feel of what people are thinking about the script and things of that nature. And it's for placement. It's to kind of like figure out, the layout of the page and that kind of thing. And yeah, and basically when you see like the transition, once you get the page laid out, I just started inking over what the what the drawings are kind of entailing there. So I'm moving pretty quickly on these. Actually, it's funny because we do all of the inking first. Then what happens is like when the inking's done, we give it over to our flatting team, and the flats are done in Photoshop, and essentially they are the flat colors without any renderings. And then what happens is once they get the flat colors rendered, they send it to me, and then when they get them done, they send them to me for rendering. Sorry, there's a motorcade outside of my house. My bad. California car culture. Anyway, yeah, and so this is kind of like just showing like the process of just what it takes to actually start drawing and coloring the the scenes. So,
And this is this is the stuff I do after during the advanced reader's copy, during the thumbnails, and you can actually see the font changed. The original font looked more like cursive, which I was going for, but it was too hard to read, so ended up with this later font, which still looks handwritten enough that I was cool with it after complaining and throwing things and having tantrums like a big baby.
Text tantrums.
But yeah, then you can also see some of the colors and stuff change throughout the process. So we're editing over kind of each step. And then after that is when I put the lettering on top as its own layer.
Excuse me.
Bless you. And so you can see this was on this particular page, what just my lettering looked like. I do it in Adobe Illustrator for the most part. But I also got to add some moles because our editor went through the whole like early draft and pointed out where John hadn't drawn moles on Lauren's face.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming in and assisting on drawing moles. You can see there. And I had this big file folder called Lauren Molamina, and also Parable of the Molar, because dad jokes, guys. All right.
Yeah. Because dad jokes, exactly.
And then cover design is also happening during all this production time.
In the middle of trying to finish, so it's like, yeah, because basically the cover is the first impression, right? So, it's the thing that, while you're finishing a book that sales, can take out. You can actually do like a cover reveal for marketing, stuff like that. So in the middle of trying to finish the book, they're like, hey, we need you to sum up the book that you're not done with into a cover so that we can actually agree upon. And honestly, the other thing too is that it's not editorial that actually has like the most power over this particular cover. It's sales actually, so basically if sales doesn't like the cover, or if something is going on, wrong with it, according to the sales perspective, then it has to be changed, that kind of thing. But anyway, so.
Yeah, and here are some versions that are closer to what the final cover was, at least for Parable of the Sower. Parable of the Talents is still under development.
Yeah, we're gonna probably go back and change her complexion and do some other things for this but you can see that basically what we did was like create like a two-sided cover. So.
Yeah, so Parable of Talent will have Lauren on the other side, and you can kind of put them together, which was a little bit inspired by Gene Luen Yang's Boxers and Saints.
Boxers and Saints, yeah. Mm-hmm. Who we're actually up against for an Eisner.
I don't want to talk about that because that gives me anxiety because I know he's
I'm sorry. We're not.
Him as Superman go win, and we're gonna be. I'll be crying, but whatever, it's fine. Oh wait, this is public. Sorry. Hey guys, how you doing? Gene Yang's awesome.
He is seriously one of my favorite creators. So.
But yeah, so it looks like there's a bunch of questions, and I could not see them when I was sharing. So
I saw them, but I decided that we were going to finish.
I figure at the end, we'll like after showing that stuff. So, all right, how we want to do this? Work backwards.
Do you guys you want to do the questions now?
Sure, unless if there's anything else.
No, it's fine. If anyone has any more questions, just continue to drop them. Tina wants to know if you have final say on the covers.
No. No. Because basically it's like, here's some ideas, and then they tell us how terrible those ideas are and they won't sell. It's kind of like, that's how it goes. And it's like, yeah.
That's why there are so many different drafts and versions. It really is just what the sales team thinks will sell
the best. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I had a kind of a follow-up to that is, do you get to, I know you both have worked together lots of times. Can the publisher say, oh, we've got this other person we want you to work with? Or how much input do you have into saying, no, it's us as a team, or that's it?
I mean, that was just sort of how the initial like negotiations went, I guess you'd say. So it started with Kindred. There's a very long backstory to it, but eventually John met Sheila Keenan, who was our editor on the book and a senior editor at Abrams at the time. She was already getting the rights to adapt Kindred. And John showed her at Comic-Con some work, other work that he and I had been working on. And she was interested in his art for the book. And he said that, he worked with me. And we had sort of a long history with trying to adapt Kindred with this other publisher. Anyway, so they just asked us to send in work to, show how we work together as a creative team. And based on that, we got the contract.
Okay. Spirit wants to know what your favorite, Spirit Denton wants to know what your favorite part of the process is.
I'm like finishing. I'm just kidding. Honestly, I have to say, like, my favorite part is kind of finishing. I mean, like, I love getting the tear sheets, like the color proofs. That's one of my favorite things, and actually being able to go through it and look at the work we've done in your hand. Because I remember the first time we did it with Kindred, it was just like they send you like this massive packet of like color proofs, color images, and that was that's really wonderful to me. So
yeah, I was gonna say when it's done also, probably. I mean, it's hard, and trying to make sure it does justice to Butler's work, but also fitting into the constraints of our contract, because the final page count is in the contract and you can't really, there's not much wiggle room with that.
Yeah.
So some things do have to be cut, and just sort of figuring out what is essential to the story, and what can either be cut or sort of redirected into like other sort of visual means of communication. Anyway, yeah, that's the hard stuff. But yeah, having it done and actually having the book in your hand, I think, is also my favorite. Because by then you've forgotten about the work that went into it. You're like, oh, that was easy. No.
John, do you contribute to the script?
Not generally. I mean, we might talk about like story direction or like, allegory and metaphor, stuff like around like the formal aspects of it, but as far as like actually writing the script, that's on Damian is in this particular book, you know, with these particular series.
Yeah.
But we will talk a lot about like themes and other types of like graphic representations that we want to get across. One of the things that we try to focus on a lot is to really dial into the things that comics, the affordances of comics, as far as like things that they do really well. So, you know, like diagrams, cutaways, schematics, things like that, that, you know, just feel really part of what comics are good at doing, different than prose. And so that's kind of like some of the discussions that we have about, you know, just the, you know, the execution of the art. But as far as like the script, no.
And I mean, yeah, and John was saying for this project, because like we work differently depending on what the requirements of the project are. Because like we have a comic called Kid Code we did with our friend Stacy Robinson that John had already like pretty much written and Stacy drew out, and I went in and did the dialogue. But in writing the dialogue, I was sort of changing the story a bit.
Changing the story, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that fit really well for that particular project. So we really do try to kind of tailor our collaborative process to the needs of the story. But then also, like when I'm writing a script, I'm definitely thinking about John's skills as an artist, particular things he does well, things I know he likes to draw when I can. I mean, it's a little harder with an adaptation
like this, yeah.
Yeah, and also just the kind of compositions I know he's really strong with. He talked about pantomime. That's like one of the many things John is amazingly skilled at. So like, I always feel comfortable putting in like, they're sad, but not, you know, they're hiding it behind a smile or like something like that. And he'll like draw these complex emotions. So in that way also it influences the script.
Thank you. I have two questions that they're really tied in together, so I'm going to read them both. One is from Stacy, one is from Nadine, and that was, how were each of you introduced to the works of Octavia E. Butler? Do you feel an obligation to her as the author and her legacy? And then Nadine asks, addressing what you see as your responsibility to her legacy.
I'll start. So I'll start. Okay. Kindred was the first of Butler's books I read, and I first read it when I was an undergrad in college in creative writing. And it was suggested to me by a professor. And it was a time when I was really trying to pay attention to like the craft of writing and thinking about how my own, what my own voice is and sort of how to write. But I didn't actually know anything about the book before I read it, which was really eye-opening. And like I tend to read slow, and I read it in one sitting. So I was pretty much amazed with Octavia Butler from the get-go, from Kindred. And then I did, you know, not knowing I'd end up reading Kindred like 14 times and picking apart like the genius of it. So that's how I was introduced to it. And yeah, no, I definitely, I mean, we've talked about this together before, but like, yeah, I definitely feel an obligation to Butler and her legacy. Like with Kindred, we were really just hoping to not make people hate us. Like that was what we were aiming for, just like good enough. Because I mean, she's such an important writer, an important thinker. And so ahead of her time that she's only just now sort of getting her just due. So definitely feel like honored and humbled, but very much obligated to do right by her legacy.
And as for me, the first book that I read of Octavia Butler's was Wild Seed. And I want to say this is like, probably like early 2000s, but it might have been even like 2000. You know, I had not encountered well, at the time I didn't realize that there were Black science fiction writers that we didn't really think of in that vein, like W.B. Du Bois, for instance, wrote science fiction. But, you know, at the time though, I had never really encountered her work before, and Wild Seed just blew me away. I thought it was just a fantastic book. And I think Kindred was the second book that I read of hers. And this is like only a few years before she passed away. And I did a portrait of her for a faculty show that I was when I was still at University of Illinois. I don't know, I just kind of dialed into it. Led me down the path to becoming an Afrofuturist scholar and a Black speculative, or Afro speculative, scholar and artist. And as far as her legacy is concerned, it's definitely been like one of the greatest honors to work on her work and to basically, hopefully, introduce people to her work through these graphic novelizations, and I don't know, working with her estate and her estate agent has been really great as well. And they've been very supportive of what we've been doing and, extremely kind to let us do this work, for her legacy. So yeah, we're very cognizant of how important she is to so many people. And, basically trying to figure out a way to help bring in more people with different voices to talk about, just how prescient and how brilliant, her work is. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question that asks, what were some things Tananarive Due pointed out that needed to be in the graphic adaptation?
She didn't really find anything, which sounds like a brag, but I still don't believe it. Yeah, she didn't. The only couple things I remember her mentioning early on, and I think this was even before I started the script, was just keeping in mind how young Lauren is, and sort of making sure to show that. And then also, I believe her one comment was she wanted to make sure the Lauren's boyfriend Curtis was adequately present in the first half of the novel,
right?
Which I tried to do. I mean, I don't know if I even really changed much. I think I just made him more prominently visualized in one scene or something.
Right.
But other than that, she was just, much to my shock, very just complimentary. And yeah, I don't know. Did I miss anything, John?
I don't think so. I mean, one of the reasons that we wanted to bring in Tananarive, was good friends with Tananarive and her partner, her husband Steve Barnes, and I know for a fact that she taught Parable of the Sower like pretty much every semester, at UCLA, because she teaches Afrofuturism and Black horror and stuff like that. And is a really prominent horror writer and speculative writer herself. And yeah, after talking about it, we said, we need like a sensitivity editor. We wanted to make sure that, a Black woman's voice was at least get, someone, who is from the demographic that we're writing of to look at the script and make sure that we're doing right by the characters, And honestly, when I first read Damian's script, it was wild. I mean, it was like reading Parable of the Sower as a comic book. I was like, yo, this is one of the best scripts I've ever, it's very tight. I mean, he did a great job of visualizing and getting everything that was in there, so that was, yeah, I thought I was very impressed, with even the first draft, so. And this the talent script was going really well too. I was like, yo, this is very good. It's different feel because of the technology aspect of it, but Damian's a really good writer, very good writer. So
I do my best, y'all. Thank you.
You have to pass by the estate. Do you have to get any approvals from them when you're?
Oh, yeah, everything. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, well, not the script, because like comic scripts are kind of weird to read if you're not used to thinking about comics production. It's like reading a screenplay or something. But usually the thumbnails that John draws, they'll look over those, and like the advanced reader's copy, and then they'll also sign off on, I think, the final. Is that the other two? I guess there's one too.
And they look at covers and stuff like that. For
yeah.
Kindred, they actually looked at. We actually had to do like a draft of, like, I think about 14 to 17 finished pages that were for the catalog, but they also,
they signed off on those.
Yeah, they wanted to sign, and so I think after that they were pretty much on board. When we turned in the final project, they didn't really have any changes. The only thing they kind of like pushed back on a little bit was the length of Dana's hair in Kindred, but we had a good reason for why we wanted to like change her hair like length, that kind of thing. So yeah, but that's about it though. Other than that, they've been extremely supportive. So
which has been like a huge sigh of relief. Like we met Octavia's cousin, and she said she liked it, and it was just like a weight I didn't know was there was lifted.
That's funny. Yeah.
So this is a question from Camille. How did you come, and it kind of relates, how did you come up with the visuals for the characters? Was it hard, or did the images for the characters come naturally?
I mean, generally, like we just try to study the descriptions that Octavia gives us, because really we're collaborating with her. At the end of the day, we're collaborating with Octavia Butler. She's given us like the roadmap to these characters, and we just have to be attentive and open. So some things we're inspired by, as far as like for instance, designing like President Jarrett. We have our ideas about what we want to look like, but for the most part, she's described him. So we just kind of like just have to be open to what they look like, and we're just trying to be like conduits for the story, what I'm saying? So as much as possible. So it's not necessarily hard. I mean, it's just that the hardest part is like drawing them enough that they become natural. They feel like they're people, But
And you
again,
remember who's who and stuff.
What is that?
And you remember like who's who and
yeah, that's which gets crazy because there's so many people. So it's like.
Did you feel the need, and this is from HM, did you feel the need to tone down any of the extremely graphic violence from the novel because your work is so visual?
Sort of. I mean, one thing I figured out early on that really helped, because I was definitely thinking about that and struggling. I mean, we had already been through that with Kindred to a certain extent, but this is also like much, I mean, it's different in a way, I guess, just because it's much more like chaotic and insane and not just like institutionalized or whatever. But one thing that I've found really helpful is that if Lauren doesn't see it in the novel, we won't show it, right? So if it's just something she's describing that she's heard of, we won't see the actual carnage. I cheated on that a little bit. There's one time she's listening to a radio report about like chaos in San Francisco, and we visualize that. But that's supposed to be like sort of visualizing her telling the thing to her group. So for the most part, it was more just thinking about the perspective of the character and what she's privy to visually, like what she has actually seen. And then there's a couple instances of like children being hurt and killed. And we very specifically made sure not to show too much of that. Especially because like in part, I think the impact of the text, like showing it just, I don't know, it cheapens it in a way. And it doesn't do the same thing as the text does.
That's right.
Yeah. And there's one example specifically where we like actually put a caption box over where one of Lauren's neighbors, after their neighborhood has been destroyed, she sees like lying in the gutter. And I don't know, that just felt like the best way to represent that particular act of violence. But yeah, I mean, with both Kindred and the parables, it was Butler talked about with Kindred actually toning down the violence from like what history was, like what the reality was, because that would just like completely put off the reader. So we kind of took that to heart, I think.
Yeah, it was still very difficult. I mean, it's still very difficult in the context of, drawing these historic or possibly historic. I mean, if you think about like just the reality of Parable of Sower, a lot of times I felt like I would step outside my door and I was in Parable of the Sower, And the other thing too is like, while we were working on it, my wife was pregnant with our son Jackson, so it was almost like watching the book come to bear, and then like waiting for him to come, and so it was like dealing with the issues that have been plaguing our country, forever, but also just like some of the more recent upheavals around like violence against Black people, and then having to have a little Black kid that you have to raise in that space. It was very disorienting, and still like, and now we have to do Talents book, which is even more, violent and dealing a lot more with these systemic issues around oppression from various standpoints. So yeah, it's a lot to bear. I mean, because you're basically like re-traumatizing yourself, because you have to sketch it out and you have to ink it and then you have to color it. So you're reifying it every time you go through a pass on making it, you know. So even though it's abstraction, but still though, you're having to channel those types of energies, so to speak.
This is a very different question, but apparently there's going to be an FX series based on Kindred.
Kindred, yeah.
Have the makers of that reached out to you at all?
I talked to one of the showrunners because I did some work with Sundance, and you know, when I did my presentation for Sundance, one of the showrunner people who's over like a bunch of the shows reached out to me in general and told me that they were going to be doing Kindred way before the announcement. And you know, we're still vying to see if, you know, we might be working on something with them, but nothing's in stone yet. So very excited about it right now. I think they've paid for a pilot for it, so we'll see. I can't see it not being successful. FX does good work, so you know.
I'm in the middle of a cornfield, so I have not talked with any Hollywood people currently. But if you want to know how the corn is doing, it's okay.
I'm in Riverside, you know, it's almost a cornfield. I did want to, you know, there is one question way up that Dr. Bonita Perkins answered that I would love to address. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's just as tough and maybe uncomfortable question. Since you're graphicizing Octavia Butler, are you being conscious of hiring Black women and BIPOC people on your design and editorial team to do the Butler projects, especially in the current racial climate with the racial wealth gap? So basically, when we don't control hiring, you know, as far as like for these particular projects, we're work for hire, and we work with a larger company. Now we'll say like our initial editor was a Black woman, and you know, it didn't work out the way that you know, as far as like just some of the things that were happening, and you know, she was let go. And so that's just how that ended up, and we were very sad about that, because we're looking forward to working with her. Now, we'll say this is that because of the success of the first two books, I was able to pitch a new line of graphic novels that are by and about people of color called Megascope, and we specifically hired you know, women of color to work with that particular line of books. So as much as we could. So yes, we actually have we have an editorial assistant and an assistant editor. Both are Black women, you know. And before that, the editorial assistant was also a Black queer woman. So it's like it is something that is at the forefront of their thinking. Now Megascope is separate than the Butler books. Their estate wanted to keep them just on Comic Arts and not under the new imprint. And yeah, so we have like less say about like what happens with those particular books, but just to say as much as we can, we're definitely open-minded about like trying to make sure that qualified people who are generally underrepresented are, you know, on these projects.
And I mean, the people we do have some say in bringing in or hiring are like the sensitivity reader, so Tanana Reeve, for example, and then the coloring team, yep. Right? Which also, I think is everyone's person of color.
Everyone's person of color, yeah. And yep. One of our strongest flatters is Alexander Batchelor, actually, who's just a phenomenal colorist. So, yeah.
There's another early question that feels kind of like it ties in, which was, what is your favorite part of the process? So what really touched you along the way?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I love reading. I mean, sometimes it takes a second to get through it because it's so much, but I really love reading Damian's script and just trying to figure out what the layouts will look like. And then also, I really enjoy the character designs, you know, because it's really trying to figure out ways to translate, you know, Octavia's prose into flesh, into like a form, you know. With the Kindred book, you know, we got a chance to speak at the Hutchins Center a couple of times. I mean, Huntington Center. So I'm thinking about
that's a different
Harvard. Sorry, that's another. My bad. The Huntington. Yeah, sorry. And they were doing a presentation on the Kindred book, and it actually had a lot of like her previous scripts for Kindred, because she's actually like she had written several drafts of it, you know, stuff like that. And there was this manila folder that actually had like an image of like almost like a Marlboro Man, you know, kind of ad, like a cigarette ad, and it's like this beautiful black woman with like, you know, kind of short afro. And once we saw it, we knew that we were looking at Dana and Kevin, you know, and that our designs for the characters were close to what she would have imagined, you know, for those characters. So again, when we're designing those characters, we're trying to, you know, channel what she wanted for the characters as much as we can, you know, within the time allotted. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
Had she done a script, or were there other drawings that you found in her archives?
No, we didn't actually see the archives till after we'd worked on Kindred. It was just they had laid out some work or some pieces of her personal papers related to Kindred.
yeah, there was a huge show. They had a show of her work there, and it was so we saw like, you know, her notebooks and stuff like that. But no, nothing like that.
But apparently she did have at least one other full version of Kindred that's like totally different and tied into her Patternist series, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And like there are a bunch of, like, I think Alice is a 13-year-old girl and she gets brought back to the 70s at one point. So there's like all these kind of alternate reality versions that Butler wrote through to get to the finished one, which was, I mean, it's sort of encouraging and humbling at the same time, because I mean, it's encouraging to see that she had to go through so much work, that it wasn't just the like magic genius, you know, that kind of thing. I did magic hands, they disappeared. There you go, magic genius. But you know, at the same time, it's like, that is so much, like, I thought I'd do a lot of work. She did 8 million times.
She almost becomes like an expert on the subjects that she's writing about.
She is like, if you learn nothing else from her personal papers, you learn that she was a genius researcher. Like, yes. She was one of the most skilled.
Like, it's like, you know, we used to do this talk, you know, about Kindred, where we were talking, you know, the writing on the back of a notebook, where she kind of almost like writes herself into existence, you know, and she's like, I will do this, I will do this. She's like making these like statements about the future of her career. And then at the end of it, she says, so be it, see to it, you know. And actually, one of my friends has "So Be It, See to It" in that handwriting, like on her arms. It's really cool. That's awesome. And but yeah, so that "So Be It, See to It." We had a picture of it that we were showing like talks and stuff, but then we were in the same room with it. You know what I'm saying? Which was just so so incredible. You know, just to actually, and humbling. You know, and I think it kind of like just re-inscribed like how special she was as a writer and you know, as a human being, and that we've really been afforded a beautiful opportunity, you know. And the other thing is that because of it, we're able now to afford other folk an opportunity to make their books, you know, quick, because the Megascope line was directly influenced by the fact that these you know, that these books were successful, and that Abrams saw that there was an opportunity, you know, to actually open it up. And so now, you know, we get a chance to work with people from all kinds of backgrounds, you know, about their dreams and imagining. And this is because of her legacy. So, yeah.
And is very much one of the things she wrote on that notebook about inspiring young writers, especially young writers of color. And so her legacy has continued on in many different ways. There's the Clarion Scholarship in her name. There's, of course, the Octavia Lab. And you know, like all this. So it's just it's just a great honor to be able to be a part of it, and just amazing to see how far her legacy extends out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's still teaching us.
I think that those are most of the questions. If I missed any, I apologize. And it's 4:59.
Oh, really quick, can I mention somebody had been asking about teaching Parable of the Sower for high school, and I just want to put a link. Abrams has a teaching guide.
Teacher's guide. Yep, that's the first thing that popped in my head. Yeah.
So yeah, that should lead you right to it. if that only goes to the book page, it's at the bottom, but there is a teaching guide that is downloadable for, I think, all their books or most of their graphic novels.
Yeah, most of the graphic novels have teaching guides. The other thing I was going to say too is because Parable is so prescient and the systemic issues are on CNN like on a day-to-day basis. You can basically like take what happened today and then map it onto what's happening in the story. I mean, unfortunately, but you know, there's a lot of tumult in our country right now. You know, so more so than a lot of times.
And I put a link in the chat to the e-media from our website for Parable of the Sower, so you can check
It is
out.
available on Hoopla. You can check it out and read it pretty much immediately, as long as you have a library card with us. I'm also going to put a link to this survey. At least I think I will. There we go. If you can fill this survey, you will be entered to win a gift card. And let's see. And yeah, I wanted to thank you both so much for coming and talking with us.
It's been
and we would love to geek out about how much we loved like just the setup of the book, and like we spent in the Octavia lab, we spent a long time looking at the maps and everything. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank
That means a
you.
lot. Thank you so much. We work very hard on the books, you know, and Damian pours through her words over and over again, trying to like distill, you know, her Octavia's words into a graphic script. And yeah, so thank you for that. It means a great deal. Also, too, I want to say thank you to the people who liked Kindred too. I saw that there were some comments about that. That means a great deal as well. We're very, very grateful.
Thank you, everybody. Even if I didn't answer you in the chat individually, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for having me.
We also have a celebratory bookmark if anyone wants to download it and print it out.
Celebratory bookmark? What? Oh man, please put it in there. I want to celebrate.
Do it right now.
I'm like,
And then we also wanted to thank the Huntington for their support of the program. And thank you so much to Best Friends for providing the financial support in producing this program series.
thank you, Alpha.
And
You.
yeah, thank you everyone for coming. This was the last program in our month-long Octavia Butler celebration. But June happens every year, so we'll see.
Yep.
Really?
I hope it happens next year.
Thank you, people who just said thank you. Also, hopefully I can thank people in person someday.
I know one of these days it'd be great, you know. And if you're in comics, you know, go vote for us. You know,
Oh yeah, there's an Eisner vote.
Eisner vote is still open until it.
Or if you can vote for Hugo Awards, you can vote for that too. I heard that's good to do from people.
Yes, librarians are eligible to vote in the Eisner Awards. So.
Oh, knock it out. So,
I mean, vote with your heart, of
yeah,
course.
vote with your heart. Vote, you know,